On today's show, we're going to be talking about something that we can all relate to: fear. Fear that leads to anxiety in many cases. Now, for most of us, it's what holds us back. It's what keeps us from taking risks and living up to our full potential. To break this down, we have on the show today an expert on this topic, Susanne Biro. Susanne has spent 2 decades helping leaders overcome this huge obstacle that keeps them from thriving by teaching them something called inner life leadership. Susanne is also the host of the Deep Fear podcast, a TEDx speaker, and the author of a book called This Could Be Everything. Susanne, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I love your backstory. You cut hair in your mother's barber shop in Canada for 13 years while you were growing up. So you spent a lot of time listening to people, which, I think a lot of us can relate to. We go to our stylist and, you may spend 2 hours there depending on what you're getting done. And you have this kind of intimate relationship. How did this experience kind of give you an insight into fear and anxiety and what people are experiencing every single day?
Yeah, my mother had a barber shop in West Vancouver in BC, Canada, and it's a rather high-end part of town. So we had a lot of company presidents, Supreme Court judges, very powerful men. I was about 17 when I first started, and like you said, it was a lot of listening, and you're also in their personal space. You have a man in your chair for about half an hour, and I learned very quickly that these men were just people, and to pay attention to the subtleties in communication, which is mostly nonverbal. Like, did they want to talk? Did they not want to talk? What did they want to talk about? How much did they want to explore a particular issue? How much did they like joking around? Which I found a lot of them loved it, because very few people would see these particular men as people anymore, because they held such powerful positions and titles, and everyone was demanding something of them. And so to have half an hour where they could just sit and have another person relate to them as another human being was really how I kept busy, because my haircuts were terrible. I was really a terrible barber. Like truly, I would cut ears, and my clients would come back and I'd say, "Why are you coming back to me?" And they said, "I would just like to talk to you." So I thought I should just do that piece of this
The
business.
talking part. Yeah.
Just the talking. Yeah. Yeah.
Another part of your history involves your own mental health, your struggles with depression. You shared some of this in the notes for the show. And you said you often felt invisible because you had a member of your family that had a serious health issue. And so naturally, it was your sibling. A lot of the focus and energy of the family went there. Talk about this as much as you are comfortable, what your
Sure.
life looked like on the outside versus what you were feeling on the inside.
Yeah, well, what a great question. And I think it's such a great question for all of us to know our personal history, because without awareness of it, we bring it into every present moment really quite unconsciously. On the surface, I had the most wonderful childhood you could imagine. Two very present parents, blue collar, hardworking, loved us to the ends of the earth. My sister is and has always been my very best friend. I was always kept safe. I had access to an education, lots of hard work to learn discipline, and a really wonderful childhood. I realize how rare my childhood is only in later years, that I was so cared for and kept safe, because I think so many of us women are not kept safe. It's a very dangerous world for women.
We were talking about how that your experience though of feeling invisible and how that led to some depression.
Yeah. So on the outside, perfect. On the inside, I think I've always been quite an introverted, shy, internal processor. My sister was very sick, almost died. And so there was just a lot of attention. As a mother, I now understand this. My parents were always, how is Sharon doing? Sharon's getting tired. What does Sharon need? So I just quite unconsciously learned, like, I don't want to add to that. And so I'll just be the kid that, like, hey, everything's okay. And I think a lot of us women can relate to that. It's like, no problem. I've got it. I've got it. I don't need anything. I can manage this. What do you need? And so I did that throughout my whole life. and just realized that it's really lonely to never ask for help. It's really lonely to perform so much that no one ever asks you, "How are you doing?" And of course, I created that persona without even realizing it. That hey, everything's good. I'm all okay. But realize it was shutting me out from people and from relationships. And then it just felt incredibly lonely. I got really depressed in my early 20s. My childhood had been so wonderful that growing up and out of it was really daunting because I realized the world was not the bubble I had lived in. People were mean, they were cruel, even people that, I think the meanest place in the world is to be at high school. I mean, girls are mean, man, men too, but I think it's just an age where, everyone's very, very selfish and they don't have any tools and they're kind of at their worst behavior. And so, yeah, just a depression that maybe a lot of us go through but don't quite realize. It came after a breakup, but then it just continued to get darker and darker. And I just thought, I don't know how to climb out of this anymore. And I actually said to my mom, um, I feel like I want to kill myself. I'm in pain all the time. And if I don't tell you, I'm concerned I might do it. And bless her heart, she didn't know what to do with that. I mean, it wasn't anything that, there wasn't counseling, or we didn't, certainly wouldn't have had money for counseling. Um, and so she just said, well, we're going to be fine. We'll get through this. I mean, and then we did nothing differently. And so I thought, oh my God, I'm really on my own. Even as loving as they were, they just didn't have the tools or the insight. And so I actually came across Tony Robbins' work and started reading and devouring it and realizing, and there's so many that came before him that teach the same thing, but it's so powerful, is our thoughts matter so greatly that I could think one thought and feel a certain way and then have a great experience, or I could think another thought and it would make me feel really bad, and then I wouldn't even want to go out. I wouldn't even want to leave my house, which is what I did for about 2 years. I was hiding out. So I totally get agoraphobia, when you don't want to leave the house. And so I slowly read and applied and studied psychology, went on to do my master's in applied behavior science, simply because I thought, if I can figure myself out, if I can stop all the pain that I feel inside, maybe that's going to be sufficient. And then I started to, as I've now listened to literally thousands of very successful men and women over the course of my career, is I recognize this is not a thing that was ever unique to me. It might be unique in the details or there's a sort of a range that we all feel this. But usually the inside experience of life, if we ask each other, how are you really inside? It's usually like, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. And I thought, how can I stop people from not only not hurting so much, but to feeling better?
Yeah, and I mean, I do some talks related to these issues, and one of the things I say is we have to learn how to silence the negative voices, right? Because we have a lot of negative feelings about ourselves that other people don't have, and yet we still internalize those. You talk about in your materials, and in your speaking, about the outer life trap, as you call it, and we're going to drill down on this a little bit later in the show. But what is that? What is the outer life trap that a lot of us are dealing with?
The belief that we can solve what's happening inside of us with things outside of ourselves, people, relationships, accolades, awards, money, etc. It can't be done. And I think that's really the good news, is like, good, now we can stop working so hard out there and start to turn inward. And I would even say there's something about, maybe we silence the inner voice. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if that's possible. I feel like one of the greatest things we can do is to listen, start to see ourselves as the person watching the voices. Because in my experience, the inner voice doesn't go away. And we can replace negative thoughts with positive ones. And sometimes that's useful and it's helpful. Um, But I think it's even more, the next layer down is, can we become aware that we are the one watching the thoughts? And then we don't need to take the contents of our thoughts all that seriously. They come in, they say a whole bunch of mostly scary, terrible things to us. Um, and they're so self absorbed. And they usually have nothing to do with us. And most of them are just downright silly. And we just don't have to do much with them. So, in my experience, the negative voice will still be there, but we just stop giving it so much attention, so it sort of falls away.
That makes a lot of sense. We stop giving it power, really. We stop
Yeah.
giving it power over us. So, one of the things you focus a lot on in your speaking and talking to people is about this fear in the outside world, and specifically the fear of failure. I think a lot of us, all of us, right, have that. And we hear all the time, I think the common phrase is, we don't learn anything from success, we learn things from failure. But a lot of times, maybe it's not even a failure. Maybe it's just we're perceiving it that way, based on what that inner voice is telling us. So, how do we overcome that? I mean, I know that I'm very critical of myself, much more critical than anybody else in my life is about me. But it's kind of hard to get over that fear of failure.
Yeah, well, and I would, one of the reasons I named the podcast Deep Fear is I just thought I should talk about something I know something about, which is fear. I feel like I'm afraid of almost everything my career has demanded that I do. I'm afraid all the time. I don't know that being a human being is a very scary endeavor. I mean, we know how the story ends. We all get old and die. We know everyone we love will get sick and die, and we will, if we live long enough, we will bury them. That is the human life, and it's terrifying. So I think first things first, it's useful to just go, this is a journey not for the faint of heart. It probably makes sense that we would be scared a lot. Just like if we see a deer in the forest, that deer is reading its environment consistently. Is it ever really at peace? No, because if it were to be at peace, it might get eaten. Being a human being is not unlike that. So I think first things first is just this, we might just be a little bit easier on ourselves, that this is a really daunting journey that we are all on, and just give ourselves a little bit of grace for that. I think that's the maybe the most important thing we can do. And because there's nothing, we can achieve success by berating ourselves and beating the mule and criticizing ourselves, but it will never lead to a really great, peaceful, beautiful inner life.
There's so many ways that we evaluate ourselves. And I think probably the number one way is we compare ourselves to others. We compare ourselves in how we look. We compare ourselves in how much money we make, the position we hold in our careers. And I think this is really where a lot of that anxiety comes from. Um, how do we get past this? How do we give ourselves permission to say, I'm not going to look at what everybody else is doing or everybody else's lives, which I guess is part of that outer life experience that you're talking about, and try to evaluate mine based on that.
Yeah. I think we need to decide. I think it comes down to a moment of choice at some point, that we just stop doing that. And then we do the work to say, I'm not gonna speak that way. I'm not gonna say those things. I'm not gonna focus in that way. And that's the journey to loving ourselves. And it takes a bit of work, but it has to be a decision, because adult life and leadership is just usually one damn problem after another. It is a world where you can never be enough for yourself or for others. If you look with those eyes, it's never going to be enough, and you can chase it and chase it and chase it. At some point, you could decide, is I don't want to do that anymore, and it's not how I'm going to think of myself, and it's not how I'm going to think of other people, and I'm going to decide that I am a success mean, everyone that's listening right now, you're not going to become a success. If you are here listening and trying to improve yourself or get some insight that can simply make you a better mom, parent, person to the people in your life, that is success, that you are it now. Great, just keep continuing.
Yeah, it's funny because I had this conversation recently with someone, and we look at our lives almost like we look at our resume. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And I said, to your point, I said to one of my friends, when is it enough? When can I just say, look, I've done all this? Okay, that's great. I've done all this. Why do I have to add on top of that? Why can't I just be, like you said, be at peace?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just really hard
And
to do.
well, I love that conversation because at some point I think we have to have that conversation and go, you know what, I've decided. I mean, I read about Oprah that she said when she turned 50, she said, well, I guess this is it now. I guess I'm an adult. And so I think at some point we just decide. I decided earlier on, I was 33, I remember it, because my mother was very sick and she later died when I was 34. And then I lost my dad 3 years later. And I decided, no, everything I love can be taken from me in a minute. It's a house of cards we're all living, and it's really short. It's so much shorter than we ever imagined. Why would we not give our like just take the voice of the inner critic and turn it into the an inner champion, the voice that the best mother or father could maybe you had a great mother and father like I did, or maybe you had terrible parents as many did, and I'm so sorry. But imagine the kind of parent that you would have wanted and have their voice in your mind. And I made a decision to do that, and then that decision changed everything. Because now when someone says, can you speak on this stage, and I'm very introverted and it's like terrifying for me to speak, I will say yes, because I know I have my own back. If I completely bomb, I'm going to laugh about that with a friend, and I'm going to go, you know what, at least you went for it. And I'm not going to berate myself. So it allows me to go after these things. Is like, you don't have to get it all right. You don't even have to do it well. Just go and do it and see if you can serve. See what you learn. Have some fun with it, and I've got you. So maybe that's part of your answer to, our fear of some kind of failure is we're just so hard on ourselves. If we were easier with ourselves, you're doing great. You're here. You're managing to pay your bills. I mean, just find the simplest thing. Did you feed the cat today? Fantastic. I mean, when I was a mother with, two under the age of two, my wish list was, I'd love to have a shower today. I mean, most days I didn't get it, but it's like when I got the shower, I was like, yes, what a success. I mean, just lower your bar for yourself and know that you are going to have that voice that says, go for it, go for it. What can you do now? Give that a try. Well, that didn't work out. That was really bad. And have some fun.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, I think we live in a culture now between podcasts and what we see on social media, books, all over the place. We're in this culture about, dreaming big, tap into your authentic self, lean in. And,
Isn't it
it's,
exhausting? Yeah.
well, it's funny because I recently learned about a movement called negative affirmations, or no, I'm sorry, disappointing affirmations. There's a book, there's a game, and it's basically like the opposite. Where like, you say something like, wow, you really made it. And then the next card in the game is, it's about time. You've been, working on this
Right.
forever. So we have all this kind of pressure to be like, wow, I've got this and go for it and all this stuff. But I think what you're saying, to your point, having, not necessarily lowering our expectations of ourselves, but really lowering the expectations of what we need to accomplish to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
Talk.
Well, so,
Yeah,
so I want to jump in there. Why can't we just feel good about ourselves? Like, why do we have to accomplish something before? Because the way to achieve is to feel good about yourself without having done anything. Then we will naturally want to do things. but not from a place of lack. We're not lacking anything. If you want to go do something, go do it, but not to feel good, because you could I want you to feel good now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Talk about you're an advocate of this thing called the daily morning practice. What is that and how does it work?
Yeah, one of the greatest things I think we can do, takes 5 minutes. First thing in the morning, set a your phone alarm if that's helpful. Take out a piece of paper or in a journal book that you have, um, and first things first, write down an intention of who you want to be today, while you handle everything that's required of you. So you might say, I want to be present with the people in my life. I want to be encouraging and inspiring to the people I work with and through today. And then just take the remainder of the 4 minutes and write down as many good, exciting, inspiring thoughts as a day could hold for you, if you would only let it. So you might, write down everything that's exciting, everything you're grateful for. There's always something. And all you want to do is do that for 5 minutes. Then maybe at some point during the day, take it out and reread it to ground yourself. And then do that for at least a month or 2 months without questioning it, and see what changes for you. It's like doing our own sit-ups. The human mind and brain is incredible, and it will, wherever we direct our internal attention on our mind, we start to create more neural pathways. It starts to be the way that we think and see the world. Then it changes what we do out into the world. We're constantly not needing something, starving to death. We're able to go, how are you? What do you need? And so it changes everything. Some daily, almost every person that I've ever worked with has some sort of practice where they orient themselves to who they want to be. We need to be intentional, and to gratitude for everything that exists. There's so much beauty and so much abundance that every one of us has in our life. I mean, we have clean drinking water available to us, many of us. I mean, if that alone wasn't enough, what more? We have loved ones in our life. We woke up in a bed this morning. There's so many things that we have, but we are so rushing through that we don't even see and experience the beauty around us, the abundance we have. And so it's simply a practice to orient ourselves to that. And if you do it, I promise things will start to unfold for you in ways you can't even begin to conceive.
One of the things I always like to ask my guests, because, when you're speaking as a guest or even a host or you're speaking on stage, people tend to think, oh, you have it all together. You've got this perfect life because you're now at this point where you're giving us advice. Where are you in your journey and your progress from that 20 something that dealt with depression, anxiety, and fear to an adult woman who's now speaking about these topics?
Well, I think I'm a little bit all over the place. It depends what day you get me. And that's the most honest thing that we can say. Sometimes I'm able to live what I teach really well and beautifully, and other times I completely mess it up. I will I'll be short and rude with people I'm working with and through, and then I create so much work for myself and I have to go and apologize, and it's a whole thing. Um, um, but I think the best that we can do is just allow for us to be human beings. Really allow for that, because we don't need to get everything right. And I think the greatest thing we can do is be kind to ourselves in the journey of it. So, so I'm doing this work right alongside everyone else. What I can say, though, that I'm really quite excited about, and I see it with my clients too. I had one client at the tail end of my work. He said, there used to be a lot of jerks in my world. I don't know where they all went. And for me, things that really used to upset me or make me anxious or concerned, now I don't even notice. They're sort of daily things that I handle. And so I think this work really pays off. It's like small little daily sit ups that all of a sudden something happens and it's like, no big deal. This is going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. I'm going to be able to handle this. I'll handle that too. And just so much more experience of joy and excitement. And I actively look for things that go right during the day. I mean, one of the things your listeners can take away and do is find one thing that goes really well today and just give it 90% of your internal attention. I mean, I did this years ago. I decided, and sometimes my one thing was, I'd pick my children up from school and they'd be well. It's like, what more could I want? And so then all the problems that come, they just don't take up a lot of mental space. I mean, life is just a series of a whole bunch of things to deal with, many of them frustrating, right? If we're running a business and we're leading other people, there's so many frustrations. But if we focus on like, God, my children are well, so I've got to pay some taxes, or, look at my financials, or, deal with this issue over here. I mean, no big deal.
Yeah, and I think I call it reframing. You can also look at something that could be a negative and say, "Oh, well, gosh, my car got towed." Well, on the other hand, I was able to locate my car. They were getting ready to close, and I was able to, I had all the documents that I needed to get my car, so I didn't have to leave it overnight and take an Uber. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. You have
Well, and I
no
have a car. I have a car.
right, you're
How
right.
many
That's
people
I have a
would
car to
die
get
if you have
towed.
a car? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much I needed to hear you today. You really not only gave my audience a lot of really good information, but you definitely inspired me, because I'm right there with you. I'm walking the journey with everybody that I talk to on this show and also in person. And sometimes I need a pep talk. So thank you for your
I
pep
think
talk.
I think we all do. I think we're meant to uplift each other without constant direction and awareness. The human mind naturally goes towards the negative. And so it is through conversation, through uplifting each other, that we get each other back to how do we want to spend time together, and what do we actually want to talk about? Do we want to bitch, moan, and complain? Or do we want to talk about things that we're excited about? We get to choose.
Absolutely. How can people find you and follow what you're doing? And I will put any links in the notes to the show.
Yeah, best place is my website, SusanneBiro.com. If you go to SusanneBiro.com/book, you'll see where my book will be out probably in about 3 weeks or so. So everything will be in there as well.
Okay, great. Anything else that I missed you think we should talk about?
No, I think this was an exceptional interview, and you're very warm and gracious. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Susanne. I want to add that this episode is not intended to be a substitute for seeking mental health support. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please reach out to a mental health professional. You can dial 988 to reach the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can also text the word home to 741-741. Again, that's 741-741. Text the word home to chat with a crisis counselor. Thank you, Susanne.
Thank you.
Yay.